Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, in the news this week, how would you respond if you were told ballistic missiles were headed your way and you only had 15 minutes to respond? Well, we'll look at how the state of Hawaii reacted. Also, Russian President Vladimir Putin calls Kim Jung Un the winner in the first round of the standoff between North Korea and the United States. We'll have these stories and more, but first, eating laundry detergent? Of course, you'd expect any household chemicals to come with a warning label which says, keep out of reach of children. But what about teenagers? The danger might seem obvious to most people, but teens are daring one another to eat a popular laundry detergent.
Wow. That's right. They call it the Tide Pod Challenge, and a government watchdog is expressing concerns over this dangerous misuse of the popular laundry detergent. And of course, Jeff, what's actually in these things is what I'd like to know.
Well, it's chemicals like ethanol, hydrogen peroxide, and polymers. So, in other words, a highly concentrated, toxic, and poisonous mixture designed to eradicate dirt from our everyday lives, of course. Well, there were already alarms being sounded by consumer groups over toddlers mistaking the laundry pods for candy and ingesting them, but the risky behavior recorded by teens and posting them on their social media pages has been growing.
19-year-old Mark Pagan is one of those who did it on a dare. He told CBS News he knew better, but did it anyway. Why are teens doing it? They are motivated to take the dare for likes on their social media pages and the hope of internet fame.
Well, authorities say what began as a joke has gone too far. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has said children who had ingested detergent needed hospital attention for harmful effects like loss of consciousness, excessive vomiting, drowsiness, throat swelling, and difficulty breathing. At least 10 deaths have been linked to ingesting the pods.
Definitely risk-taking behavior. Well, Procter & Gamble, the maker of the product, told CBS News they should not be played with, even if meant as a joke. Safety is no laughing matter.
Well, an outbreak of the flu in the United States is nearing epidemic proportions, according to the CDC. The virus has been spreading extremely fast across the United States. Reports of the illness have come in from 46 of 50 states so far. Health officials are warning that this has become one of the worst seasons on record.
That's right. Of course, people hope they won't get the flu, but many know where there are high concentrations of people, it is inevitable. However, the intensity of this year is catching a lot of people by surprise, and vaccines have not been effective against this new strain of flu called H3N2 virus.
The CDC estimates that influenza causes 9 to 35 million illnesses and 12 to 56,000 deaths annually. Now, however, if this turns into an epidemic, those numbers drastically rise. Now, Dr. Sharon Webel of Stroger Junior Hospital told RT News people should really respect influenza. It is a disease that we know in the United States causes millions of illnesses every single year. It causes hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations, and it causes thousands of deaths every year.
Wow. Well, in 1 week, the CDC reported the number of hospitalizations due to the flu has doubled. And in the last week of 2017, New York State saw a 66% jump in flu cases, bringing their number to almost 3,000, closing out the year with a nationwide total of 48,000 flu cases.
Wow. The H3N2 strain is known to be especially dangerous because it causes its victims to become much sicker more quickly than other strains of the flu. Health officials are telling the public to ride out the symptoms because the majority of people infected with the virus will get better.
Well, Jeff, they also say that the best way to avoid getting the flu is, of course, washing your hands and get that flu shot. However, at Maimonides Medical Center in Brooklyn, they are saying the flu shot is only 30% effective. Those odds are not that great. 30% effective against H3N2. And Dr. Aiton Dickman and his ER staff have seen a 30% increase in flu patients this year.
Now, Dr. Dickman says we've actually seen a fair number of people, even if they've gotten the flu shot, that are still becoming ill from the flu. So he's basically saying it's really not helping. Right. If anything, very, very little.
Plus, they inject you with the dormant version, supposedly, of the flu anyway, so you're kind of getting a double portion there in that instance.
Now, some diligently get their flu shot every year, but are still succumbing to this deadly disease. It is seriously affecting children and young people because they have not been exposed to this particular strain before, so they have not built up an immunity to it. Now, there is actually so much illness that some schools have been forced to shut down.
Well, our next report concerns something we have never heard of before, but that caught our attention for its total lack of respect for humanity. A disturbing video of hospital personnel dropping a discharged patient off in the cold Baltimore streets at night.
A psychotherapist coming out of his office across the street saw 4 security guards from University of Maryland Medical Center pushing a wheelchair away from a bus stop where they had just left a disoriented patient who had been discharged.
Well, stunned by what he saw, a woman dressed only in her hospital gown and socks at a bus stop on a freezing night, Imamu Baraka recorded the entire scene on his cell phone. In an interview with CBS News, he said she was in the heart of downtown Baltimore with no clothing on, vulnerable, fully exposed, literally. I became enraged, he said.
In the video, you can hear Baraka ask the security guards if they are okay with leaving the woman out there on the street. Now, after the video was released and went viral, they apologized and promised they would investigate.
Well, the president and CEO of the hospital told reporters, "We feel comfortable in the statement that what you saw in that video is not a process that would occur with any frequency at all." While there isn't a national database which tracks patient dumping incidents, the reason is it occurs, most often is because the patient lacks insurance and has no financial resources. You'd think that they would at least take the effort to call them a cab or a relative to see if they can take them to someplace safe and warm instead of just dumping them in a cold street.
That sounds pretty bad. It's almost as if they're saying if they don't have the money, sorry, you're on your own.
Profits over humanity.
According to Catherine Lehman, who works with the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, hospitals have the legal requirement to make sure a person is fully treated. What I see on that video, she said, is a person who was not stable, is a person who needed federal care. Clearly, there was more that hospital needed to do.
Well, the woman in the video has not been identified for her protection, but in a Facebook post, her mother said that video was horrifying. She also said that her daughter is with the family now and would be getting medical treatment, but not from that hospital.
Well, the right to freedom of speech seems to be carrying a heavy price these days. Larry McGee has been following a story for us on a teacher who was arrested for voicing her opinion, as well as the latest coming from the U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley. Larry?
There are still distribution issues with the enormous wealth of the United States, so much so that a school teacher recently found it difficult to hold her tongue at a recent board meeting where the school superintendent announced that he would be receiving a $30,000 raise, while the teachers themselves have not received an increase in close to 10 years. Ms. Deja Hargrave then rose to question how the superintendent was going to take the money that she believed should rightfully be given to the teachers. That inquiry and objection earned her the attention of the city marshal on guard, who approached the middle school teacher and asked her to leave. When Mrs. Hargrave demonstrated a reluctance to do so, the marshal decided to apply force. Footage of the English teacher collapsed on the floor and the officer asking her to refrain from resisting have since gone viral. The teacher was initially booked for resisting arrest and remaining on the premises. As the public became aware of the incident, the school has become caught up in a storm of negative backlash, including threats, obscenities, and criticisms. Mrs. Hargrave says she is just upset that no one rose up to stop her removal, and that it has taken a female teacher being forcibly removed from a meeting for people to care. The U.S. believes the DPRK is just as defiant. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley recounted the various UN resolutions enacted since 1993 to address the North Korean crisis, while pointing out how Pyongyang has continued its march towards nuclear acquisition the entire while. The ambassador stated at the recent UN meeting that the time has come to exhaust all diplomatic means to end the crisis, and that, she says, means acting quickly to enact the strongest possible measures in the UN Security Council. Mrs. Haley says that they have kicked the can down the road enough. There is no more road left. The response of China, North Korea's strongest ally and one of the U.S.'s biggest competitors, is that the North Korean crisis must be handled peacefully, and Beijing will never allow chaos and war on the peninsula. The Chinese ambassador stated that all parties concerned must strengthen their sense of urgency, take due responsibility, play their due roles, take practical measures, and make joint efforts together to ease the situation, restart the dialogue, and prevent further deterioration of the situation on the peninsula. To assist in producing that end, the ambassador suggested the freeze for free scenario jointly proposed by China and Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin, and having his say on the issue, says he believes the only way out of the Korean crisis is dialogue, no matter how hard that option might be. The Russian head stated in a recent interview that Mr. Un has definitely won this round. He has achieved his strategic goal. He has a nuclear payload, a long-range missile that can strike anyone he sees as an enemy. Now he wants to calm the situation. Kim Jung Un, in the mind of President Putin, is a well-rounded and intelligent politician. Mr. Un's statecraft was on full display as 5 North Korean diplomats walked across the border into South Korea to shake hands with their counterparts as the cameras of the attending photographers flashed away. The diplomats offered as a gift that Pyongyang will be sending athletes to participate in the Winter Olympics and will also be sending a cheering section, to which the South responded that they should march in the Olympics together. The South is also said to be hopeful of resuming reunions between those separated by the Korean War. The meeting was reportedly equipped with technology that allowed the leaders of both nations to listen in, and while negotiations concerning the North's nuclear weapons are said to have been off the table, the meeting reportedly concluded with the northern delegates informing the South that all of their missiles are pointed at the United States. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Baton Jeff, back to you.
Well, Kim Jung Un is definitely making his point clear when he says those missiles are intended for the United States, not South Korea. Well, Hawaii had a recent scare as a ballistic missile alert was sent to over 1 million people via their cell phones. It was a text message that was actually sent to them. And Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii said that people were told they only had 15 minutes to get to a place of safety when that alert came out. The alert also said that an incoming missile is headed your way. Take cover. This is not a drill. Well, since Hawaii has been doing monthly siren drills, informing residents when you hear the sirens, you have 15 minutes to take shelter. This, of course, sent a recent string of events sent people scrambling to find their loved ones and get to a place of safety immediately.
Congresswoman said that she spoke with several people, including a father of 2 children, who had to decide which of his 2 children he was going to spend the last few minutes of his life with because they were in 2 different schools, and that was heart-wrenching for him to make that decision. Now, Gabbard said that the fact that these processes failed so epically that caused this trauma, that caused this terror all across the state of Hawaii must be fixed immediately.
Well, a strong consensus among experts regarding global warming is that the Earth's surface temperature has increased. And the cause of it is, well, it's us. It's mankind. That's right. But in a recent poll, only about half of Americans believe that global warming is because of human activity, while 26% believe it is a result of natural patterns, and only 6% believe it doesn't exist at all. So, Jeff, we definitely seem to know that the majority of Americans seem to be aware that something is occurring with our weather. They might not agree on what, but they know that things are changing.
There's a major military buildup on the Turkey-Syria border, with the Turkish troops and the armed units are taking up position in the Hatay province, now a disputed area west of Aleppo, still claimed by Syria. The decision was made at an emergency security meeting led by Turkish President Erdogan. At a press conference, the country's vice prime minister made it clear concerning the stakes involved, saying, "At this point, Turkey has reached the limit of its patience. When the continuity of the Turkish people is in question, we will not hesitate to eliminate the risk and remove the threat."
Well, Turkey's anger was caused by reports that the U.S. was forming a quote-unquote border security force of 30,000 fighters charged with keeping the jihadis from IS escaping and keeping the peace, of course, in recaptured areas. This was supposed to be carried out by the YPG militia, a group Turkey considers a terrorist organization. Well, U.S. Colonel Dillon announced plans for the border force, which was quickly condemned by Ankara and the Syrian National Council, who also doesn't like the idea of Kurds in charge of a new army.
U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson tried to calm the position of the two allies, saying that the U.S. was misportrayed and that the U.S. only intend to train local elements, not to build a new army. Tillerson, however, did say that the U.S. is planning to stay in Syria for the foreseeable future to fight jihadis, a plan the Assad regime says is illegal.
Interesting. Well, when NATO chiefs of defense meet twice a year, Russia is always a main talking point. The 29-country alliance has been steadily building up its forces along Russian borders. Moscow is very consistent in its message, though, saying that it is only interested in defense, not in attack. But NATO military leaders have agreed to go ahead with plans to set up 2 new military bases, citing Russia as one of the main reasons for the move.
NATO Commander Curtis Scaparotti said that there is definitely concerns over Russia. "I think as an alliance, we're dominant. There are domains within this that were challenged. I think cyber is one of those. They were very competent in that." Well, the NATO military chief says that for years, Russia has been modernizing and upgrading its military. Therefore, the alliance must do the same. Now, critics say that the U.S. is using NATO as a tool in destabilizing the region for its own gain.
Interesting. Udo Voigt, a German representative, said, "The U.S. needs NATO, but me and my political friends want Germany to go out of NATO and bring Russia into Europe, because Russia is a part of Europe, and the U.S., he said, is far from Europe. Well, under pressure, the U.S. President Trump urged 22 EU nations to pledge an increased amount of spending to NATO, which they have, and since they are a part of the alliance. Well, so the question is, who's going to benefit for this military buildup, this increased spending to NATO? Well, you could probably guess it's going to be the arms industry. Just like it is in the United States, so it is in the European Union. The arms industry in Europe is said to make an even greater fortune as a result in this increased spending and military buildup.
Well, the anti-war campaigners say the official data from the Eurostat show that over 117.5 million people in the EU are at risk for poverty. Yet sadly, more money and focus is being directed towards war and death.
Yeah, and the thing about this is that we're seeing with the news that we just had right now that you have the flu, but you have also the amount of money that's being spent not towards health and healthy living for people's life, but more money is being spent on war and ways to destroy our enemies.
Right. Well, if you'd like to find out more about these articles and others, you can contact the House of Yahweh, and when you do, don't forget to request your free prophetic word and monthly newsletter. Here's how. To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website at YPNnews.com. If you'd like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do that at info@Yahweh.com. Any international calls, call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, we'd like to remind you of two excellent Bible study tools on the market, absolutely free: the Yisrael Says program and the Ask Yisrael program. You can learn more about them by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Hemmerman.
Thank you for watching.